This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 5th of November, 2021, and I am GW.
And I am Serbia.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. The Daily Nation, push for County 48 kicks up a storm. The Standard, DP RUTO's 135 rallies in 30 days. The Star, Uhuru's moment of truth. To kick RUTO out or wait. And finally, the People Daily, Jubilee ODM merger talks hit cross winds. So Serbia, why don't you begin with the submission today?
So today, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a more global view of political affairs and what they mean for Kenya.
Okay.
So what does a coup in Sudan, a state of emergency in Ethiopia, and a border dispute between Kenya and Somalia have in common? Before I tell you what these three related events have in common, allow me to break down the law of unrelated things.
Okay.
This is the phenomenon where seemingly unrelated things somehow appear to have a connection. For example, the famous study which found that ice cream sales and murder rates in New York were directly proportional to each other.
Yes.
When one went up, so did the other. This did not necessarily mean that there was causation. The idea that one factor caused the other to happen. They are only related because they had something in common. And this common denominator was summer. People simply killed each other and ate ice cream more in hot weather. What's my point here? If Ethiopia collapses, Sudan collapses, and Somalia invades Kenya's waters, Kenya will be in an environment of war.
Yep.
In fact, if Famajo invades Kenya's waters next year using the ICJ ruling, make no mistake, Kenya will join the fray and discipline him.
Okay.
We will be effectively at war.
Yep.
And if we are at war, then we will have no election in 2022.
Oh.
And the reason for this is rooted in the Constitution. Article 102, Sub-Article 2, as read together with Sub-Article 3, provides in no uncertain terms that when Kenya is at war, Parliament may extend the term of Parliament by up to 12 months.
Okay.
Correct.
We have to remember that in Kenya, the election of the president is tied to the life of parliament. Article 136, sub-article 2 provides that an election of the president shall be held on the same day as a general election of members of parliament.
Yes.
In sum, if a state of conflict crystallizes between Kenya and Somalia because of Famajo's monkey business, then the elections will be postponed to August 2023.
Okay.
Let us bear in mind that Kenya is an anchor state in the region.
Kabisa.
If she collapses, sub-Saharan Africa will implode. Kenya is therefore too big to fail. Its geostrategic significance cannot be overstated. Even the Western powers know this. It is no wonder President Uhuru has had audience with all of the last three American presidents, twice with Obama actually. And you can bet Uhuru and Biden were not just meeting for tea and kaimati. Kenya is a centerpiece, and presently we have a steady guiding hand and stabilizing force in Uhuru Kenyatta, who is also the current chair of the EAC.
Yeah.
What all of this means is that there is so much more at stake than we might realize as we approach the next elections. It's much more than about the bottoms-up economics of wheelbarrows or how many GSU or APs will be sent to watch over RUTO's chicken-laying eggs. The 2022 election, in addition to being about securing and building on the last 2 decades of the progress made by Mwai Kibaki and Uhuru, is also about the future of sub-Saharan Africa and the role that Kenya must play.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot of food for thought to unpack in
Definitely.
that submission. Fantastic. GW, what do you have to say?
Well, today I was inspired by the headline in the Standard.
Okay.
The deputy president has managed to have 135 rallies in 30
Very
days.
surprising.
That's
Huh?
a lot.
Yeah.
Hats off to you, sir. This is no mean feat. Now, some quick mathematics will tell you that this is 4.5 rallies per day. Now, let us take it a bit slowly. A few days ago, in a statement from Gujiri Wambugu, he highlights that the burden that is being carried by the taxpayer from an array of such campaigns across Kenya, is on them. He stated that it's impossible to do this many campaigns and political rallies and still deliver as DP. And I quote, Gujiri also went ahead to accuse the deputy president of using public funds to organize private political rallies and abscond his duties. Think about that. So let us try break down the real cost of these rallies and the potential impact when we put it into perspective.
Okay.
Okay. We can assume that each rally costs about 3 million Kenya shilling. Now, this could be used to fuel his chopper, the motorcade, buy lunch for his staff and his entourage, some mandazis and chai for the watus attending, and maybe 1 or 2 handouts and generous donations.
Just 1 or 2.
Now, that means we're spending about 12 million daily. Just pause there. Okay, 12 million daily times the 30 days that he has apparently been campaigning will equals to 360 million Kenya shilling. Okay. We know that we're about to enter the next final leg of the 2022 race, and the tempo will only continue.
Okay.
Pause right there. This does not even count or add up to the 4.4 billion that a presidential candidate is allowed to spend once IEBC kicks off the election year.
Okay.
Do you hear that? So he's going to be spending double over on top of what he's already spending.
All the other opponents are even allowed to spend.
Exactly. So let's hypothesize that he will do this for the next 8 to 9 months leading up to the election. That is 3.2 billion cash money over on top of the 4.4 already allowed. Okay. I just have one follow-up question. Where is the money coming from? Even if you tell us that it comes from investments, donations, or quay legs, the maths is not mathing. And if you can spend such money and potentially fail to become president, you've lost a plot kabisa. Ama namna gani?
Kweli.
Okay, let's put that aside. Looking at campaigns, I was further inspired to look at how rallies and these campaigns are formulated. And more specifically, what don't the masses know about the effort it takes to put such a class act? Number 1, politicians repeat lies over and over again.
Okay.
That's a fact. The propagandist and second in command of the Third Reich, Joseph Goebbels, famously said, repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth.
Yep.
Number 2, polarize everything into 2 sides of the debate, left versus right, liberal versus conservative, hustlers versus dynasties.
I see where you're going there.
I mean, look at us. We fall for the same party trick every single time that is sold to us. Number 3, the next trick is to employ very well how we convince the person to become willing to their own delusions.
Okay.
They pick on a certain trait within the masses that is part of their identity, part of their culture. And just think about this. What did Trump do with the idea of immigrants and job insecurity?
Okay.
He flawed his campaign. Or what of wheelbarrows and hustlers? They feed on emotions of the masses rather than logic.
Okay.
If you want to convince a person to appeal to you, touch on the most basic instincts. Equipped with this knowledge, I encourage you to take a good look at the things that are unfolding as we edge into 2022.
Okay.
And for he who has eyes to see, let them see. And he who has ears to hear, let them hear.
We hear, we listen, we hear. So I, today, wanted to talk about the Star headline, because the Star headline had the ingredients for an interesting discussion. They asked, will President Uhuru Kenyatta choose to wait, or will he pull the trigger and expel the deputy president from the Jubilee Party? Here at the Fifth Estate, we have consistently stated that the president should not wait to get rid of his rogue deputy, and that he should immediately expel and impeach the deputy president.
Yes.
But instead of acting, the president has approached his deputy with restraint. This begs the question, why has President Kenyatta opted to use restraint instead of ruthless aggression towards his rogue deputy?
Tell us.
Now, Chinese philosophy teaches us that it is advantageous for you to choose the time and place for battle, not your enemy. You can do this by encouraging your enemy to expend their energy in futile quests while you conserve your strength.
Correct.
When the enemy is tired, that is when you attack, my friends.
Yes.
Another way to describe this, I would say, is I'll call it the rope-a-dope technique. Okay. In 1974, Muhammad Ali faced George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle, one of the greatest matches of all time.
100%.
In the match, Ali and Foreman exchanged blows, but Ali understood one thing. Foreman's biggest strength was just that. his strength. But his endurance could not compare to that of Ali. So Ali opted to use his strength instead of moving around the ring. Ali chose to fight for extended periods of time, leaning back into the ropes in order to avoid many of Foreman's big blows. Foreman would approach him with all of his might, and Ali would simply just dodge him. But with every move that Foreman made, he grew tired.
Yes.
While Ali was full of energy, Ali would bide his time and strike when the moment was right. Safe to say, Ali won that fight hands down. What is my point? Uhuru is allowing RUTO to expend his resources, his energy, and his time. RUTO has had the luxury of fighting sequential battles in the previous by-elections, i.e. he faced them with the luxury of time and money. During a general election, RUTO will come to realize he cannot be at every church, in every constituency, and expend the sheer amount of money and time that he has been spending. President Kenyatta has not acted because he is conserving his energy for when the time is right to strike, weighing whether such a move would actually increase or decrease RUTO's momentum.
Yes.
President Kenyatta understands something that RUTO clearly does not. Politics is a game of endurance, a war of attrition, of wearing down the enemy.
Yes.
Okay, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves these 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And finally, is it thoughtful or just a plain lazy? So I'll reread the headlines for you. The Daily Nation, push for County 48 kicks up a storm. The Standard, DP RUTO's 135 rallies in 30 days. The Star, Uhuru's moment of truth, to kick RUTO out or wait. And finally, the People Daily, Jubilee ODM merger talks hit crossroads. So the push for County 48 kicks up a storm is actually very interesting. There's a debate that will be in Senate next month, and they're pushing for Mwingi County. That's in Ukambani. But it's what do you guys think about that headline?
I think it's factual, topical, and groundbreaking because it proves that despite the fact that BBI was shelved, it was actually raising legitimate issues that needed to be addressed. Yeah.
Okay. Any notes about the other headlines? The DP RUTO's 135 rallies in 30 days.
I think that's either an expose or like carte blanche. It is what it is. He's clearly expending too much energy, too much time, and maybe too much resources.
And it means 135 rallies in 30 days means the guy is idle. He has time. He has too much time on his hands. So, do any of these headlines appeal to any of you guys?
You call it. I'm not impressed by any of them.
Okay, then I'll call it. There's no winning headline today.
And now for a final thought. Inspired by the book The Political Brain by Drew Weston.
Yes, so before we get into that, let me give you guys a brief summary of what we've been talking about today. On Tuesday, this week, our final thought is inspired by election campaigns. On Tuesday, we looked at How to Win an Election, an Ancient Guide for Modern Politicians by Quintus Cicero. The book is literally an ancient Roman guide for campaigning that is still very relevant today. On Wednesday, we looked at Mad Men and Bad Men, What Happened When British Politics Met Advertising by Sam Delaney. The author gives a historical account of various political advertising campaigns over the last 30 years of British politics. And finally, on Thursday, we reviewed the book The Selling of the President by Joe McGuinness. The book captured something new and strange in American politics, the massive use of television and the techniques of advertising to direct and orchestrate the presidential campaign in 1968. So, Serbia, what are we looking at today?
So as we gear up to 2022 elections, I think that this book, The Political Brain, the role of emotion in deciding the fate of the nation, should be a requisite for anyone hoping to run for office.
Okay.
This is because the book explains why you could win or lose the elections. The author, Drew Weston, attributes this to how our mind and brain works and how this affects the way a voter makes up their mind to vote.
Okay.
First, Mr. Weston starts by explaining how emotion is integral to the brain's cognitive function. He uses examples in profound speeches by some US presidents like Franklin Roosevelt and Bill Clinton to show how political messages are most effective when they resonate emotionally to the audience.
Yes.
How people's allegiances are won or lost by tying crucial political issues to deep-seated sentiments about patriotism, family, and community.
Okay.
Mr. Weston argues that this is why Republicans have almost always won in the US elections. So Is this by sheer luck or meticulous strategy, you might ask? The author unravels this mystery by branding them masters of the dark art of politics, the Republicans. They understand that elections are a marketplace of emotions where logic plays a supporting role and emotion is key. Presidents 100%. Like Donald Trump gained an advantage by developing an emotionally fear-laden narrative designed to exploit the electorate's sensibilities.
Yes.
While on the other hand, Democrats have always aspired to be politically correct in their campaigns or even avoid conflict or confrontation altogether. And this is why they rarely are re-elected.
Okay.
Yes.
So forget your abstract ideas, policies, and philosophies. If you assume voters make decisions based on the issues, you lose. In politics, when reason and emotion collide, emotion ultimately wins. A voter can be bright, educated, and politically aware, and yet, at the end of the day, they will think with their gut feeling. So as one seeking elective office, what do you do then? Use truth as a major weapon in your arsenal.
Okay.
The best way to elicit passion and zeal in the marketplace of emotions is to tell the truth. There is nothing more compelling in politics than a candidate who is genuine. You might be tempted to spin the truth a bit on some issues, but remember, these are actually the issues that you should speak truthfully about. Lastly, the author stresses that shying away from conflict or contentious issues makes the voters automatically detect weakness. So even if you can't handle the heat in the political kitchen, find a way to stay. Taking the higher road in politics is not a sign of nobility. If you concentrate on issues over personalities, you fail to speak to the emotional brain of the voter, and you lose. So if they go low,
You go high.
no, go lower. Call them out and blast them. Hit them hard and hit them where it hurts.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right. When reading this book, I was drawn to a chapter in particular, and that is rebranding the culture of life.
Okay.
It dives deep into the basic instinct that lives within all human beings, identity. How can one arouse passion from a person's identity? And more specifically, how does conflict arise within the voter and between the voter? Allow me to try and unpack this. Do you think voters can discern the difference between entertainment and politics? That is where the crux of this chapter is. If a headline read, "The public is split on abortion," this statement could read to be true. However, if we look further into the world that we live in and see what the public also sees, the houses are divided within themselves. If you want to ask, I want to ask you, dear viewer, who do you love most in the world? Your answer is usually your parents, a spouse, or partner, siblings, something like that. But at the same time, if I was to ask you which one of them could make you your angriest or your most irritated, you will still have an answer. Conflict is virtually built into human existence. And in politics, you win an election on the networks you make, what dots you connect, and leave unconnected. That is why the political elite have been able to find a way to twist and define and dissect the meaning behind themes in values and morality, character, things like those. Everybody who listens to the politicians hears what they want them to hear and sees what they only want them to see. This is because of their gift of the gab. Think of the most recent example. The famous turned infamous Donald Trump.
Trump himself.
Through the 80s, he took business risks that no one did. Through the years, he has been a familiar face in the mainstream media, specifically more an American audience.
Yes.
But then when we heard he was exploring a presidential bid, most people did not expect him to be the candidate to reach the polls and win. The public interest in Trump, for lack of a better word, is almost electric. This because he was able to pick into the psyche of the mass voters and use their identity to create conflict within and between themselves. His party slogan, "Make America Great Again." That statement alone makes you think that you were not great before. And at the same time, something or someone is not making America
Great
now.
And so we
And you need to find out, what is it? So throughout his whole campaign, Trump toyed with the emotions of the voter base like a piped piper. The more outlandish the tweet or the remark, the more traction he got. To pluck a page from one of our photo favorites, Roger Stone, you have to be outrageous to get noticed. One of Roger Stone's rules is, or Stone's rules as he calls them, it's better to be infamous than not famous at all.
Wow. You see, today, I would like to talk about the one question that basically ruined an entire presidential campaign. I found it the most interesting thing in the book. In the American election season of 1988, presidential candidate Michael Dukakis was in a hot contest against George Bush Sr. As is the tradition of presidential campaigns, candidates must face each other during organized debates. This was the final debate before the election. Now, a renowned journalist by the name of Bernard Shaw, who was known to make guys sweat, was only allowed the opportunity to ask the candidates one question. He had just found out that he would be the moderator of the debate less than 2 days before it was scheduled to occur. So definitely it was not enough time to prepare. But anyway, he spent hours figuring out how to ask the candidates a question that will make them sweat. And at 2 a.m., Eureka! The night before, he finally had the question that he was going to ask Dukakis. So now imagine that day. Now he goes and he asks, Governor, if Kitty Dukakis, that is Dukakis' wife, were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer? By all means, this question was unfair. It was completely unfair. But it worked. Dukakis was famously against the death penalty. Everyone knew it. And this question would force him to choose between understandable hypocrisy and uncompromising honesty. Dukakis chose the latter, and it ruined his career. He responded by saying, "No, I don't. And I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life. I don't see any evidence that it's a deterrent, and I think there are better and more effective ways to deal with this crime." It sounds harmless, yeah? Sounds harmless. Wrong. He answered an extremely irrational question with a rational answer. But according to the author, what the public heard were these 3 questions. Number 1, are you a man? Number 2, do you have a heart?
Correct.
And number 3, are we similar enough that I could trust you to represent me and my values as president? And rather unfortunately for Dukakis, the answer to all of these questions was no, not you. And there ended his dreams of becoming president.
Unfortunate.
Dukakis failed to understand that human beings are largely irrational, especially when the issue is linked to their survival or the survival of their loved ones. The author calls this the evolution of emotion. When a question like that is personalized, it does not evoke rationality. Instead, it evokes emotion. Keep that in mind. So on a day when we didn't have a winning headline, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. And I'll leave you with this quote by Theodore Roosevelt about voting, because election season is coming. A vote is like a rifle. Its usefulness depends upon the character of the user. Thank you so much for watching Winning Headlines, and have an amazing weekend.